Good morning. We're going to start off with pocket aces. We're in middle position. This is a 25 NL table. We're going to open raise the three big blinds. And we get called by the big blind. Now, with the big blind, I have 987 hands on this player. This player is a tight player 12-8, 3%, 3-bet percentage. Calls pre-flop 2 bets 7% of the time. He is pretty darn tight. So we should be able to get his range fixed. Now what we can see is that he's tight early position, and he loosens up MP and the cutoff and the button. So at the button, he's probably the loosest. We'll also note that he's loose in the blind, so it almost seems like he is going to call a little bit more widely if he already has money in the pot. He doesn't really raise or 3 bet. I mean, the highest 3 bet percentage is small blind, five out of 72 and 3 out of 74. So, uh, I'm not. I don't think he's really adjusting his 3 bet range by position, but I think he is willing to call a little bit more in later position. So you can see call 2 bets early position. He's more likely to call than he is to raise. 6%, 6%. Big blind is 12%. So what kind of range are we going to give him? We're going to give him probably. I think all suited aces may be a little bit too much. Let's give him pocket pairs. That's 13%. Yeah, probably all of the suited aces. Those suited kings. That's probably about right. He may have queens, might not have queens in his range. And his 3 bet percentage is pretty low. Um, we'll include it. So I think that's his range, and of course with aces we're going to be ahead. We're going to be ahead quite a bit. Flop comes down jack high, which is actually a pretty good board for us. We're going to stay ahead at this time. So the pot 6.4, big blinds. He checks to us, not surprising. Out of all these hands, he is not donked, so 0 out of 11 opportunities. So he's going to be checking his entire range. Of course, I'm going to bet. I'm going to bet at least half pot. What we should note is that his fold to C bets 57%, fold to turn C bets 50%. So he hasn't really been in a situation where he's facing continuation bets because he normally doesn't call a whole lot. Uh, his raise first sin's 10%. It's like if he's coming in, he's going to be raising, which gives him the initiative. So, you just have to be aware that, this fold C bet isn't, particularly low or particularly high. It's kind of in the middle, and more than likely he's playing better hands that allow him to call. So it's one of these things where he may have a jack, he may not have a jack. We have the ace of clubs, so we completely, most likely hands would have been like that ace queen of clubs, ace jack of clubs doesn't exist. Ace, basically all of these ace suited are out of his range now because I hold the club, which means that he's really not going to have a lot. If we check, I'm not opposed to checking, giving him reason to suspect maybe, I missed. Maybe I had ace king or ace queen. So maybe he'll take a stab at one of these pocket pairs on the turn, which is possible, but he's not. He doesn't seem to be overly aggressive. Let's see what his turn pro bet. So maybe, if we check, he may go ahead and fire the probe, which gets us a bet because I think if we bet, I'm not entirely convinced that he will call with all of his pocket pairs. So I think if we bet he's going to call a set, two pair, over pair, definitely his top pair. We'll say nines and tens he'll call, uh, and the middle pair, but the weak pair, sevens and below, um, I think we'll probably just get rid of those. I think he'll probably just fold those and um, move on to the next hand. It's kind of tough to see how he perceives us. Maybe he'll call once and then fold on the turn. Um, I do think he's calling with flush draw, open ended straight draw, maybe the gut shot, queen 10, but I don't think he's going to be calling with, you know, backdoor draws or anything. So if I bet, I think he's calling 67.1%. Uh, if we check, I think he's probably going to bet probably the same range. Maybe toss in, if the next card's a heart, maybe toss in the heart draws. Um, I think what we're going to look to try to do is to target those jacks, because I think the jacks may make up the most likely hands that it will likely uh, call the flop, call the turn, and probably call the river too. Uh, and flush draws are going to be a small percentage, but we can also target those because I think he would call those as well. I bet 2/3 he calls, so I'm going to go with that range. We're still 78% equity. We're still ahead of his range. And then five of diamonds comes. And now I think, since he already demonstrated he called, he could very possibly have jack, possibly have an 8. I think if I bet again, so he's going to check. I think if I bet again, I am going to get jacks to call again, and maybe the 8s. Probably also 9, 10 in the flush draw. Um, so I bet 9.92, which I believe is about 2/3 pot. And he calls. So at this point, I'm going to still go straight. I think it's sets. I'm going to take sets out right now because I think if he had a set, he might have gone ahead and raised it at this point, or at least raised at some point in the hand. Maybe not on the flop. If he didn't raise on the flop, then I think he's going to probably raise on the turn. So I think the sets are going to be out. I still think overpair, with his queens. I think he's thinking, in his mind, maybe I have the ace jack, and I'm gonna bet, and the queens will just keep calling, and then maybe on a low card he leads on the river. Nines and tens, yeah, I've bet twice now. They may be able to find a fold. Uh, they may be able to find a fold. So I bet twice now. I think they're gonna give me credit for having that jack, and just say, you know what, I'm done. I mean, myself, I'm playing pretty tight, 16-10 at this point. So I think I'm going to take those out of his range. And then the river hits jack of diamonds, and I think that's just an awful card for us. Because if he a good percentage of the time he's going to have those jacks, and we're going to be stuck. So I think once that jack comes, or what we can do is just check behind, take the showdown, because I think if we bet, I think we're only getting called by a jack. But that's not what happened. So this player leads out 26.04 into a 34.72 big blind pot. So he needs, need 30% equity to make this call, to make this a plus EV call. What is he going to bet with? I think he's going to bet with 3 of a kind, and that's about it. So against that range, we have 0% equity. In order to make this call correct, we have to add in some other hands, and I think the overpair is just not strong enough. I think the overpair would much rather just to check call again, because he's got some showdown value, and maybe if he's calling like that, he might not believe that I have the jacks. Could he do it with a busted flush? Um, Maybe not. Maybe not at this time. I don't like how the jack came out because jack's easily in my range. Uh, so if he does it, let's say with three of a kind and all of his not no made hands, so his busted straight and his busted draws, then you can see we're at 44%. But I don't think he's doing it with this frequency. I think it the no made hands is basically, yeah, he's betting it 29.6% plus 37%. So 66.7% of the time he's going to be betting here, and I just don't think that that's right. So let's look at the river. He donks 67% of the time. So 2 out of 3 times when he called continuation bets, he let out on the river. Uh, Now he won at showdown 51% of the time. I just I think it's going to be a tight fold, but I don't see how we are ahead. He called as a tight player. He called pre-flop. Then he called 2 continuation bets, and if he had, let's say, kings, and chose not to raise it, I just think he's going to check and hope that I bet again. Uh, I think he's betting here because I might have that club draw that missed, and I'm just going to check behind now. He's looking to get value. Uh, so I called, and he shows pocket eights. So he had trips. He didn't have the jacks. And we took this set out because I kind of assumed he would have raised at some point in the hand. And I was wrong with that. So he was much more restrained in his play. I guess he probably didn't raise because he didn't think that I necessarily had a flush draw. That my 2 bets were sized to represent a jack. And then once he got the full house, he wanted some value out of it. He obviously didn't put me on a jack myself because I think he would have probably just check called, or he's kind of doing like a blocking bet. This is kind of a difficult hand to mark. I had him as maybe Old Man Coffee, so yeah, and that was added. I've got more hands on him now. So I guess a player like this, once he, knowing this player type, when he leads out, I think you've got at least trip jacks, probably full house. So um, I'm surprised he didn't raise with pocket eights on the turn. So I didn't really get this, but the idea that here's a guy that is overly tight passive and is only going to raise when he has the goods, easily trip jacks. We should have just folded. It's a sick fold. You hate folding a hand this strong, but this player type isn't bluffing. All right, that's hand number 1. Let me clear out and get hand number 2. All right, hand number 2. In middle position hijack, I get Jack 10 offsuit. It's folded to me, and I'm gonna raise. And I want to start off with trying to answer the question: was this a good raise? Before we should raise, so this is 25 NL game. We have to look at the players behind us. I'm not really in a steal position, so we can kind of ignore the steal stats. But what we can do is look at VPIP raises, called pre-flop 2 bets percentage. So I got 40% for called pre-flop 2-bet, 20%, 56%, 40%. I think the chance that my raise is going to get through is actually pretty small. I would let's see. This is a call pre-flop 2-bet. So if they didn't call, they folded. So 1 minus that percentage is probability that they folded or raised. We can say I don't. Let's see here, fold. No pre-flop. call a 2-bet. So if we look at just percentages, we should probably go to um, the position. So call 2-bet, that's 100%, 1 out of 1 for that person. This villain from the small blinds, 50%, 1 out of 2. So these guys, even though I don't have a whole lot of hands, they've called a 2-bet from the blinds. The button is probably the tightest of them, and you can see that he, 0 out of 1. I only have 11 hands on him. He's shaping up to be kind of a tighter player. 30 hands on this player. He's shaping up to be somewhat loose. And his cutoff is 1 out of 4. So out of all of these guys, I'm going to expect at least one will be calling. At least one. Which means that my Jack 10 offsuit really isn't that good. I should be stronger because I'm going to likely be out of position if this villain 4 calls, which I think he's the most likely one, followed by, one of the blinds. So I think I would much rather do this with Jack 10 suited and just fold Jack 10 offsuit and move on. However, this Jack 10 offsuit is kind of like not quite a fringe hand. Definitely it'd be close in the cutoff, but in the hijack, it's just kind of a crappy hand to play out of position. So I really should have folded it. I get called by both the button and the big blind. So the button is playing 18-9, 18% VPIP, 9% pre-flop raise. It's only out of 11, so you can see that this is basically 1 out of 2 now. Second hand that he's been on the button, he's called now once. We're gonna have to set up just kind of a standard calling range here. I think with this calling range on the button, he's gonna be. I think he would probably have raised those hands. We're gonna take out some of these crappy offsuits. That's 14.8% against the call. I think that's probably appropriate. What about the big blind? I think he's going to be a little bit looser because it's only 2 big blinds for him to call. So we don't have anything on his 3-bets. He has 3-bet. That's 1 out of 15 times. And let's see if we've got anything. 3-bet range was queens. So we're going to include the queens. Maybe something like that. Ace queen suited, ace queen offsuit. Some people will raise that from the big blind against a high early position MP raiser. A lot of people won't. So I'm going to leave those hands in. I'm going to give him suited connectors. I think we're going to take out King 10, Queen 10 offsuit. We're going to leave in Jack 10 offsuit. We're at 17.8%. I think I'm going to add these one gappers to just to increase his percentage because he is getting a discount. So I think that's going to be his range. Now, when we look at Jack Hearts 10 of clubs, you can see that this is not going to work out very well for us. We're not going to be favored. And again, so that's 43% against the big blind, 42% against the button. Against both of them, we're at I don't know, 30% maybe at best. So the reason we would make this play, we would raise with Jack 10 offsuit, is we think the players behind are playing way too tight and they're going to fold. And perhaps that's what I was seeing at this table. Perhaps this table has been overly tight, and I'm able to loosen up my pre-flop raising range in mid position and pick up the blinds. In this case, that didn't work out. But as a default strategy, I don't like raising here. Flop comes out 9, 3-2 rainbow. So let's see here, 9 of hearts, 3 diamonds, 2 of spades. So we flopped a backdoor gut shot with 2 overs. Villain 7 checks. I don't have any donk frequencies on him. I'm going to assume that he checks with his entire range. And I think this is going to be a good one where we can c-bet. Board's not likely to hit our opponents. Yeah, they could have a 9, but that's at this guy, you're looking at those combos to hit the 9 and those combos. And this opponent, the button, has even fewer combos of the 9. So I think this is just kind of a dry board. This is a pretty decent one to go ahead and fire out a c-bet. Even with ace king, ace queen, probably if you have backdoor heart, diamond, or spade draw, that you can also fire out a c-bet here, because you can continue if you pick up some equity. Here I'm betting with the overcards and the backdoor straight draw. The idea being that I would likely continue firing out a barrel if the turn brings an 8, a 7, let's see here, a 7, 8, 10, jack, or queen, and probably also a king or an ace. So a king or an ace, are those cards that, if they don't believe that I have a pair, an ace or a king comes, I can bet again, and if they don't have an ace or a king, they're going to likely fold, unless they're just completely stubborn. And against most unknowns, they're not completely stubborn. They'll likely fold. So I fired out a c-bet. I bet 4.68, so it's like half pot bet into 9.4. Villain 5 calls. The big blind folds. So big blind's out his wide range, and now we are dealing with this opponent. This opponent, so 9 of hearts, 3 diamonds, 2 of spades. We have to ask, what is he calling right now? So I think he's going to call with all of his pairs. I mean, no reason for him not to. I think he's going to call with his straight draws, probably his gut shots. I mean, that's only 47.5%. I think we need quite a bit more in here to make that call, because if he's a thinking player, then he knows that this board is likely to completely miss me. So it's okay to add in some extra hands here. Now, what kind of hands is he going to call with? If we do all overcards, he's calling 87.3%. And that might be actually his range that he'll call with all of his overcards, just to see if he catches one of those Broadway cards. And that's fine. He could be calling to bluff later, perhaps. So just looking at my stats now, you can see that I c-bet flop. This is the first. I haven't c-bet the flop. I'm 0 out of 3. Don't know why, but I haven't c-bet the flop yet. This is the first time. Turn was the 8 of hearts. So with the 8 of hearts, that improves my straight draw. I think that is going to be a good one to target. I think we can bet again if we get raised. I think we're gonna probably have to fold, because we're gonna be facing some reverse implied odds. Because if a heart comes, like 7 of hearts, queen of hearts, we could be behind. So the question is, what are we going to do? Do we just check? I don't think so. I think if we check, he's going to bet an amount. He bets half pot. We need 33% equity, and we may think that he's going to bet. Let's see here. He'll bet all of his top pair, over pair, maybe his middle pair. He doesn't really have it. His weak pairs, 7, 6, 5s. 4s, I think those might just check. But his flush draws, open-ended straight draws, he'll bet. So just that, I'm only getting 31% equity when I need, like 33% equity. That's if he bets half pot. If he bets more than that, we're not there. If he does bets with his weak pairs, you can see that I'm at 31% still. If he doesn't do this with flush draws, I'm at 32%. Open-ended straight draw, if you take those out, we're only at 26%. So just overall, if we check and he bets, even if he's betting as a bluff, I I don't think there's going to be enough bluffs in his range for us to profitably call. We'll just have to fold. So because of that, I think we have a better chance of betting and getting like the overcards. King, queen, king, jack that we think might be in his range to go ahead and fold. If he calls again, I think there's going to be a good chance that he has a nine, ace nine, king nine, or something maybe like a seven, sevens or sixes that he doesn't quite believe that I have that nine. So I did. I bet 12.48. So that's what 2/3 pot, which I think is now sizing up a little bit larger to narrow his hand. So by me betting larger, I think he's going to call with the top pair. I think he'll call with the over pair. I'm going to say sets and two pairs are still going to call. I don't think they're going to raise. They've got position. They can see what comes on the river. I think the weak pairs, I don't think it's one of those situations. I think maybe sevens and sixes could call if they don't believe me. If they do believe me, then I think they're just gonna dump it. So, and that would be all weak pairs. So if we include the weak pairs, I'm at 31%. If we don't include them, I'm still at 31%. So you can see that it really doesn't change the equity, but that's going to affect the river card depending on what comes. So at this point, I'm really hoping that if I bet, I'm hoping he folds. Just folds out his hands, and you can see that he's calling 53.3% of the time. He's folding 47% of the time. There's a lot of hands he's folding, so this is actually, I'm gonna look at that as saying it's a profitable spot. Now this percentage is going to be much higher, so a lower folding percentage if he doesn't call with those overcards. If he doesn't call on the flop with those overcards, so he does call, and then the river's the 10 of hearts. And I'm going to say I can't be too scared out of that about this card because right now flushes are only 10%. So I think we've got a decision. Are we going to check and possibly call, or are we going to bet ourselves? And I went with the check, but I think what I could have done was gone ahead and bet myself, because by betting, you're basically saying I'm not afraid of the heart draw. And if you get raised, then that means that he's saying, you know what? I know you're not afraid of the heart draw, but I can beat that, which probably means he's got the nut flush, and or better. I mean, there's a straight flush out there, but we have the jack of hearts. But if we bet and he raises, I think we can safely fold. Yeah, it's going to cost us a little bit, and how much? It's whatever our bet is. So I think what we can do, we did half pot and then we did 2/3. I think we could probably bet another half pot bet. Yes, it's going to look a little bit suspicious sizing down, but sometimes that sizing down may look actually scarier than increasing to a pot size bet. By checking, we're going to be, we have to face a call, and the question then becomes, what is he betting? What would he bet with after we check? Would he bet with top pair, over pair, two pair, sets, straights, flushes? Yeah, he'd bet with all of those. Would he bet with middle pair, or weak pair, or no made hand? That's kind of the question. So right now, if he only bets with top pair plus, he's betting 44.8% of the time, and our equity is just 3.3%. So basically, we tie. That's kind of what we're hoping for. If we think he's going to bet with middle pair and weak pair, now you can see that our equity's drastically changed. And with out of 11 hands, I don't think we have enough. I don't think we have enough information. So I think at this time, I should have bet here and probably folded if he raised. Because I think weak pair, middle pair would probably just want to check behind and see the showdown. What did he do? He bet 31.08. So, like 2/3. Eh, 75%. So 31.08 out of 43.72. Yeah, 71%. So out of 71%, I guess we'll say he's got 56 and the pot's 43. He could have easily have shoved all in. He didn't. He bet this smaller amount. So what do we have to call 31 to win 43 and our risk stat. So we need 41% equity in order to make this a good call. And I don't think we have it. I don't think we have it because I'm not sure if he's going to do it with middle pair and weak pair. Definitely, if we think he's going to do middle pair, weak pair, we call. But I'm not sure the standard player does. I did call, so we get to see the showdown, and he shows 4-5, which is really really gutsy. So I think that was probably a bad bet on his part, unless he thought that I was completely bluffing. I mean, let's take a look at it. No made hand. He's got 5-4. I mean, that makes sense in his range. And I guess if he's trying to balance, yeah, I think he would just kind of check behind with top pair, middle pair, weak pair, probably over pair, and two pair probably check. So maybe he bets the flush, 10%. So it's like 53% flush, 46% no made hand. I don't know. I think sets also probably bet at this point, but I think it's a little strange. I think we kind of put ourselves into this tough situation where we had to guess what he's doing this with, because we didn't bet that river, and I think we probably should have bet that river. And by betting the river, it kind of protects against that 5-4. Yeah, he's gonna fold, and at that point, we just we take it. I mean, his play is looking more like he has a 9. Uh, so it's a tough one. I think we make a note on this player, to say that he fires out as a bluff. Um, so yeah, he called 2 half pot or greater barrels with a draw, and then after that, on when check 2, he fired out that bet. So that's gonna pop up as a pro bet for him. I'm gonna say we didn't really get this hand. I think we had to guess on the river, and I think I'm still guessing on the river here. I think it would have been easier if we went ahead and bet. We made top pair. I don't think he's going to be betting all the way with these hearts. With a backdoor draw. So, yeah, he could have it, but it's going to be small. All right, 2 hands. Hope you enjoyed it. Look for 2 more hands tomorrow.